This episode of the Burnout Recovery Podcast is brought to you by MEGA, your medical indemnity partner. Whether you're starting out in your career or have decades of experience, MEGA helps you thrive with support that goes beyond insurance. Enjoy travel benefits like complimentary travel insurance and Qantas points on your membership, plus education, medico-legal support, access to career coaching and wellbeing resources. Visit mega.com.au to learn more. Insurance issued by Medical Insurance Australia, which has not taken into account your objectives or situation. Before you make any decisions about our policies, please read our PDS and consider your needs. Call us for a copy or visit mega.com.au.
Welcome to the Burnout Recovery Podcast, a guiding resource dedicated to healthcare professionals on their journey to overcoming burnout. Spearheaded by Dr. Joe Braid, a certified professional coach and rehabilitation physician.
Hello and welcome back to the Burnout Recovery Podcast. I'm Dr. Joe Braid, your host, and this is episode number 189. Happy 1st of July, by the way. For those of us in the Southern Hemisphere, this is right in the middle of winter, and yet here we are, probably still running at a pace that would embarrass most marathoners. So this episode is very much on purpose. We are halfway through 2026. And if your year has looked anything like the ones I hear about from healthcare workers every single week, busy, relentless, with very little genuine recovery built in, then this episode is your reset. Today, I'm going back to basics by request and honestly, because the data tells me this is what you need right now. The most downloaded episode of this podcast ever is called How to Recover from Burnout. That episode has currently been listened to 2,137 times. And what that tells me is that this question, how do I actually recover, never stops being relevant. So today we're going deeper. I'm going to share the 4 signals that your mind and body send before you crash, and one concrete reset for each. No grand overhaul required, just practical tools that you can use this week. Let's get into it. I want to start with something that happened recently that I think will land. I'm part of a peer group of doctors who coach doctors. There's a big cohort of us on WhatsApp, and every 2 months we catch up on Zoom. Most recently, there were 6 of us on the call, and we are leaning towards having an annual event. So we wanted to create an event where we'd have sort of an event around what coaching is all about, how do you become a coach, and also time for us to all connect. Proper conversations, the kind of reset that a 1-hour call simply cannot replicate. This year, the weekend away has been floating around the calendar for months. And when we were asked directly if we were going to be hosting anything this year with my co-organizer, we had obviously looked at both at our diaries and said, it's just not happening this year, next year. And the whole Zoom room, all 6 of us just exhaled. Nobody pushed back. Nobody said, but we need this. Everyone just agreed. It was a clean decision. It was a good boundary. It was done. And I want to sit with that just for a moment here, because we're 6 doctors who between us have coached probably hundreds of clinicians, many of who will have an element of burnout. And we know what the signals look like. And we know what happens when people keep adding things to an already full year. We coach on this. And yet, not one of us truly had space for another weekend event in 2026. Now, the decision itself, I'm sure, is the right one. Protecting your year from one more commitment when there is genuinely nothing left to give in the calendar. That is the tool working, not failing. But the fact that it was needed at all, that collective, I just can't add a thing in a room full of people who work on this in their personal and professional lives as well, that is a signal. And it's one I think a lot of you will recognize right now. Because here's the thing. By the time most of us name what's happening, we're already well past the yellow flag. We've been running on a partially deflated tire for months, telling ourselves it's fine. It's just a busy patch. Everyone's tired. And I hear that often from the clinicians that I coach. Not I'm burned out. Most people don't say that because they're still functioning, showing up to work, doing the best that they can. They say, I just feel a bit off, or I'm not sleeping well, or commonly, I'm just not enjoying work the way I used to. So these are signals, not weakness, not complaints, they're data. And once you can name them, you can do something with them. So today, I want to give you a framework for doing exactly that. It's called the 4-signal reset, 4 warning signals, 1 reset for each. Simple enough to actually use. The neuroscience here is really important because it explains why we can miss the signals in the first place. And Dr. Amy Arnsten's decades of research at Yale on stress and the prefrontal cortex shows us something that should be on every medical school curriculum, and I'm really not sure if it's there or not. It's not a space I'm currently working in. When we're under chronic stress, the part of our brain responsible for executive function, making decisions, emotional regulation, and nuanced judgment can really go offline. The stress hormones, cortisol and noradrenaline, shift brain activity away from the prefrontal cortex and towards more reactive automatic regions. And what this means practically is that the more we need clear thinking, the harder it can be to access. And critically, the harder it is to notice that our thinking has become less clear. So our thinking about thinking happens right at the front of our prefrontal cortex. Dr. Christina Maslach's foundational burnout research identifies 3 core dimensions of burnout. Emotional exhaustion, the most common feature in healthcare professionals, cynicism, and reduced efficacy. What's important to understand is that these 3 features don't necessarily arrive together. They accumulate, and they can accumulate through signals, or they can be seen through signals that we often dismiss as just part of the job. A study in 2023 found that healthcare workers who spent just 5 minutes a day checking in with themselves, not trying to fix anything, just noticing, showed significant improvements in job satisfaction and emotional well-being within 4 weeks. 5 minutes, that's it. And research from the field of interoception, so that's our ability to sense what's happening inside our own bodies, shows that people who are high in interoceptive awareness recover from stress significantly faster. Not because they experience less stress, but because they catch the signal earlier and respond sooner. So that's the whole game. Early signal, early reset. So here are the 4 signals I want you to watch for. They map directly onto what the research identifies as the earliest, most reliable indicators that your system is under more load than it can absorb. So the first signal is around energy and rest, and that concept of I'm tired even after I sleep. This is the most common thing I hear, not I'm not sleeping. Many high performers do have elements of sleeping well, but they'll often say I sleep 8 hours and I wake up already behind. So this might not be a sleep quality problem. It is like a recovery deficit. Your nervous system is spending its overnight repair time managing the cortisol load from yesterday rather than actually restoring. And sleep researcher Matthew Walker describes this as sleep that doesn't land. So the reset here is a micro recovery practice, not a sleep overhaul. Something you can do in the next 24 hours. Before you leave work, and I mean before, not after you've done just one more thing, take 5 minutes to do nothing purposeful. Just sit somewhere quiet, no phone, no mental to-do list, and let your nervous system have a genuine gap. And if you find yourself at home, not in the workplace, on one of your days off, my preferred go-to for this is a 10-minute yoga nidra or a non-sleep deep rest meditation. I find these so restorative. Noise-cancelling headphones, lie down, do that for 10 minutes, and it is such a great break in the day and nervous system support for you. So this might feel indulgent, but what the research on ultradian rhythms tells us is that our brains cycle through rest phases approximately every 90 minutes. And when we override those constantly, we accumulate a debt that sleep alone cannot repay. So 5 minutes of genuine, intentional rest during the day is not laziness. It is maintenance. Second signal is around the cognitive load. My brain feels like it's running on too many tabs. You know this feeling. The moment you walk out of one conversation and can't quite remember what you decided because you're already 3 thoughts ahead, or you reread the same paragraph 4 times and still don't get what it said. This can be signs of cognitive overload. And in healthcare, we can sometimes wear it as a badge of competence when in fact it is the opposite. Dr. Sendil Mullainathan's research on scarcity, and this applies to cognitive bandwidth just as much as financial resources, shows that when our mental capacity is depleted, we make systematically worse decisions. The harder we push, the less we actually get. And so the reset for signal 2 is an offload, not a productivity system, a simple physical external offload of whatever is occupying your mental background. At the end of the day, spend 3 minutes doing what I call a brain dump. Write down everything that is sitting unfinished in your head, not to solve it, just to move it out of your working memory and onto the page. Research on the Zeigarnik effect shows that unfinished tasks consume disproportionate mental bandwidth. And once they're written down, your brain registers them as stored and releases the hold. 3 minutes, worth it. Signal 3 is around boundaries or overgiving. I'm doing everything and resenting all of it. And this may be the signal that most of us are trained never to name, especially in medicine, where we were taught that you put the patient first, full stop. And look, that is true in the room, in the moment, it is true. But when patient first extends to me last in everything, always, resentment is not a character flaw. It's a physiological signal that the balance is off. Dr. Maslach's research is clear. Depersonalization, that flat, disconnected, slightly cynical response to the people we're caring for, is not evidence that we stopped caring. It's a protective response from a nervous system that has been overgiving for too long. And the reset here is one boundary this week, not a systems overhaul, not a difficult conversation with your entire department, one thing. So here's a script if it's useful. I'm not available for that, but here's who might be able to help. Or simply, I can't take that on right now. No is a full sentence, and you do not owe anyone an essay, and the more you practice it, the less it costs each time. Finally, signal 4. It's around meaning and cynicism. I don't remember why I chose this. Now, this one can be a quiet signal. It doesn't shout at you. It whispers vaguely in the background, usually on a Sunday evening before another week. Loss of meaning is the deepest signal and the most important to catch. Because when we disconnect from the why, we lose the one thing that can actually sustain us through difficulty. Viktor Frankl, writing from an experience none of us would wish to test, found that meaning was the single most powerful determinant of resilience. And in healthcare terms, we can see this as the slow shift from I chose this to I'm trapped in this. It usually happens so gradually that we don't notice the point of change. So the reset here is deceptively simple. Tonight, write down a moment from this week, just one, where you have made a genuine difference. It doesn't have to be dramatic. It can be the anxious patient you took an extra 2 minutes with, the intern you gave honest feedback to, or the colleague you sat with at lunch. Research on meaning and well-being consistently shows that the act of noticing and naming positive moments, even small ones, rewires our attentional bias away from the negative. We're not pretending things are fine. We're training our brain to hold the full picture, not just the hard parts. So there's your 4-signal reset. Let me bring them together. Signal 1, tired even after sleep. Take 5 minutes of intentional, purposeful nothing time today. 2, your brain feels full. Take a 3-minute brain dump. Get everything out of your head and onto the page. Signal 3, resentment creeping in. Draw one boundary this week. 1. I'm sure you know which one. And signal 4, the why going quiet. Write down one moment this week where you made a difference. 1. You don't need to do all 4 today. Start with the one that made you slightly uncomfortable when I named it. That's usually the right starting point. So you might want to screenshot the signals from this episode in the show notes, write it down or save this episode, because this isn't necessarily a one-time listen. This is the kind of thing that you come back to when the pressure builds again, because it will build again. That's just the nature of the work. So this is the mid-year reset, and I just hope that this has left you with some of these signals to be mindful of and monitoring so that you can catch yourself maybe before you even reach a yellow flag stage. Make some changes and create that optimal environment for sustainability for the next 6 months of the year. If any of what I've shared today lands for you, I'd love to hear about it. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram at the Burnout Recovery Doctor, or as Dr. Joe Braid on LinkedIn. And if you're not yet subscribed to the Sunday Long Game, my weekly newsletter, the link is in the show notes. Come and join us. And if you've been thinking about working together one-on-one, join my waitlist via the link in the show notes as well. It starts with a free 25-minute consult call. That's all for now. Be human first and everything else will follow. Cheers. Ready to take the next step in your burnout recovery journey? Visit drjoebraid.com for free resources, all 150 plus podcast episodes, and information about my keynote speaking. Links are in the show notes. Your well-being matters. Protect the asset that is you. Be your best you. Rely on MEGA for your protection and support, serving doctors for over 125 years through insurance, education, medical legal advice, and member benefits designed to help you thrive and succeed. Insurance issued by Medical Insurance Australia, which has not taken into account your objectives or situation. Before you make any decisions about our policies, please read our PDS and consider your needs. Call us for a copy or visit mega.com.au.